Hi there. What I wanted to take you through, based on your request, on two of your key deal breaker scenarios, which you have put forward in your requirements document. One is regarding effective dates, the ability to assign different due dates based on if an employee is new or current. Um, Understand that new starters, new course is assigned, and they need to do it within 60 days, and then any other mandatory training needs to be by the effective date. Different case for current employees, their effective due dates might be different. So this is the first scenario that we will run through, and of course after that I'll also take you through the versioning options and how Sabo handles versioning. So we are very well placed to handle both the scenarios here. Before I do jump on into a demo, I just want to quickly introduce you to a couple of concepts which will help us take take us through this demo. So I'll just um, mention here in this slide deck that I'm building for you some key concepts. And the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about is how do we differentiate, how to differentiate between a new hire and an existing employee. So the answer to this is there can be loads of options to do this, and Saba can allow you to even have kind of a flag, in your new hire when somebody joins in, saying that this person is a new hire, and then it can automate the conversion of the flag back to an external employee. I'll use a very, very simple case here for the demonstration. So what I'm going to do is, any new starter needs to start with kind of an induction training. Let's have that assumption as we go through. So let's say a new hire onboarding. Now, any person who has acquired this new hire onboarding, or completed it rather, is an existing employee, and any person who has not yet completed it can be treated as a new hire. So this is just how I'm differentiating between a new hire and an existing employee. Just for example, for this specific purpose of this recorded demo, you have different other options of doing it as well. Now, my idea here is that all the people, when they are on the new hire onboarding training and they have not yet completed it, any other mandatory training that needs to be put in will have an effective date of, let's say, 14 days. During that 60-day period where they're completing their new hire curriculum. So new hire onboarding tells me who a new starter is, and then let's say I have another curriculum or a course, and I'll shortly tell you what the name of that course is. And that has 60 days to be completed, and any other mandatory training during that day would have 14 days as an effective date. Okay, so this is one concept that, and more of an assumption that we'll use for the purposes of this demo. The other thing that we are going to use is the concept of rules. So this is a very, very, very powerful engine that's running inside Saba, that's essentially automating all the tasks of an employee. So rules are essentially things like, a simple rule can be like, any person who has joined in Bangalore needs to be taken through the Bangalore induction program. However, any starter that joins in UK should be taken through their UK induction training program. Now, every time a new starter joins in, of course, we cannot expect an administrator to go in and push that training. So these rules will operate in the background and default, or essentially push those trainings reducing the work of an administrator, thereby making them much more productive and efficient. Now, this is just an example. Rules can be run for almost anything and everything, and this is the essentially the power behind the Saba Cloud learning management system. So that was the concept of rules. So rules is essentially automation of, let's say, assignment of learning here. It can be other things like automation of, if someone has a job of, senior medical practitioner, provide him or her this set of curricula. That can also be a rule. So what I'm going to do right now is, once I have mentioned this, I'm going to move right now here to my administrator user here. I'm going to take you directly to the admin console and show you how these combination of the two concepts that we dealt with help solve your problem. So I'm not going to any other details here, just keeping myself focused on the two requirements that you had. And I'm going into people admin here, and I go to my rules engine. This is where, as an admin, as a one-time activity, I can define these rules which will automate my entire learning management system. And you see that I've created 3 rules here. So the first rule, the simplest one I would talk about, is a Kinapse new hire onboarding rule. So what this rule essentially does is, if I go inside this, so what it essentially does is, it runs every minute. It can run every minute, daily, whenever you want it to. So it selects a predefined group of people. In this case, I'm selecting new starters, and I've kind of put in a condition that any person is started after, let's say, some specific date. This is just an example. And any person who has started after this date, what this rule would be doing is, it would be assigning this new hire onboarding curricula to them, and see how I can change the effective date of that. So what it says is, for the new hire onboarding curricula, there is 30 days for you to finish that. Once you finish that and complete it, you become an existing employee. So this is what I've set up for the purposes of this demo. So this is the first rule. So any person who is a new hire gets this training the first time they join. Now let's move to the second rule, because that's where our demo scenario starts, kind of. It's a new starter mandatory training rule. So what this does here is, and I've put in a brief description here so that you can understand this. Just put in a brief description here so that you can understand this. So this rule assigns new starters 60 days for the Kinapse Pharma course and 14 days for any other mandatory training. Now, how this rule works, how this essentially automates the stuff for you. So what this does is, and I've put in here, so any person who has been assigned the new hire onboarding curricula and has not acquired it, which means that they have not completed it essentially. So essentially any person who is still yet to complete the new hire onboarding curricula, I'm selecting the members here, and now I'm saying how the system should behave with them. What I've said is, allocate this Kinapse Pharma training, which is a target days of 90 days, a processing date plus 60 days, is a mandatory curriculum. So this is that mandatory training that you have requested for in your demo scenario. And then I'm also saying any other training which needs to be assigned to this person needs to, and for example, I've chosen this bloodborne pathogens course, needs to have a effective date of 14 days, and because it's mandatory. So for any new starter, I'm refreshing your memories again, how I'm determining a new starter if they have not completed the new hire onboarding curriculum, and that's just one way of doing it. There are other ways of doing that as well. And how and what sort of formulas I'm putting on that. I'm saying that for this Kinapse farmer training, which essentially I'm referring to, this statement here: new starters get 60 days to train on all mandatory training that are assigned to the curriculum on the day they join. So what I'm saying here is whenever they join, they need to finish it by 60 days. And then I'm referring to a next statement which says any other training would usually be 14 days to training. And this is what I'm doing here. Any other training that's getting assigned, I'm saying, for example, this course here is 14 days to training. Now, as you would know, Saba allows you to actually go ahead and edit these due dates. So essentially, this is the training that would be automatically assigned to this learner's plan. And then I can either set a fixed due date, or for each learning event, I can calculate due dates based on the date, the rule on which it was processed, or no due date, or have a custom target days, which is I've put as 60. So catering to that. So this is that mandatory training curriculum. Now, any other mandatory training during this period for new hires would have an effective date of 14 days. This is how I'm not automating this. And all I need to do is, just save this rule, and that's it, finished. Whenever the system finds a new starter, this rule kicks in, and these things get automated. Should you want to add a new training to someone's, let's say you want to add 5 different mandatory trainings, all you need to do is just add a learning event here, and it lets you choose which course you want to assign, and you can quickly, I'll do one here. So let's say I want to assign this course, Approaches to Successful Public Speaking version 1, and then I can say add due dates, and I can quickly say I've added 2 courses here. Essentially I can say this would be 14 days, this would be 14 days, because it falls within that mandatory 60-day period, and I can mark them as mandatory or not depending on sorry, I think I didn't put the due date for this. Let me go ahead and do that. Custom target days 14, save. Yeah, and this is mandatory. And so I have these trainings which are mandatory trainings. They're happening 14 days because this person is a new starter, and I can save this rule. That's it, finished. The rule is processed automatically. You do not have to do anything. Whenever the person finds a new hire, automatically kicks in. Now let's talk about existing employees. That's the other part of this problem here. So I've created another rule which is called Kinapse existing employee rule. And when I go into this rule, what I see is this rule assigns different effective dates for the Kinapse farmer curricula for Kinapse existing employee. So how I'm selecting these existing employees? As I again mentioned before, any person who has completed their new hire onboarding training. So what I'm saying is include any person who has who has acquired this new hire onboarding training, just as an example. And what am I going to do to them? I am essentially saying that the Kinapse farmer training for them should have a due date of 14 days. And it's totally this I've just created this just to make you feel that whatever your criteria is, based on that you can determine these dates. So you have the flexibility to go ahead and tell the system calculate the effective date based on this formula. So I've chosen for example 14 here, and any other mandatory training. You saw how for the new starter it was 14 days, but for this for existing employee I've just for example taken 18 days over here. So now it's custom target days is 18. So once these rules are processed, so what would happen essentially is it would show those effective dates on the learner's learning plan. So let's say I quickly do one thing. So I start processing these rules. So new hire onboarding rule, I start processing this rule here. So this would assign the new hire onboarding curricula to all employees, whoever are new hires. And then what I do is, so let's log in as a learner here. I'll use a different browser in this case. I'm just logging here as a learner. So I'm logging into the system here as a learner, and my learner user is Judy Bright. And let's see if that rule has been processed and this curriculum has been assigned to them. Of course, this is my demo system, so there is a lot of um, there's a lot of trainings here. So what the rule would do is it would essentially assign this training to these new starters. Now I think I've just taken a wrong employee. I mean, this curriculum was already assigned to them. So essentially, my point is you can essentially go ahead and do that. And um, let me look at your other questions here. So the ability to assign different due dates based on if an employee is new or current, that's what I've showcased to you. For new starters, if a new course is assigned within 60 days after the initial curriculum has been assigned, that course needs to be trained on by the effective date. So this is also what we have set in the rules, or the effective dates we've set in the rules, and how easy it is to change the status of a new starter to current employee. So that's very easy, and let's have a look at that. So what happens here is, so let's say I'm an administrator, and so this person is a new starter. They have not yet completed their new hire onboarding training, and that's what we agreed that we would be, that's the way we would be determining new starters. Let me quickly go and have a look into what the curricular and course assignments for this person is, so I can see that new hire onboarding is not yet acquired. So what I can do is I can go ahead as an administrator, or I can do it in bulk as well, but this is just, I'm showcasing a simple example. So I can go ahead and grant this curricula to this person. It's essentially saying that this person has acquired it. So once I do that, then that person would be an existing employee. So it's very easy. So just go into admin, choose the training, and say change completion status as an admin, and say acquired. That's it, finished. So that's the easiest workflow of doing this. So this is how we have essentially solved the problem of assigning different effective dates to different employees based on whether they are new starters or existing employees. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. And the reason why I always want to do a face-to-face demo, but essentially I'm traveling the entire week, and I just didn't want to stall your progress with Saba, so I thought I'll at least give some things for a start. Okay, the next situation here was essentially versioning of courses. So yeah, some things we need to bear in mind here. Saba has been the pioneer of learning for the last 22 years. Versioning is something that is kind of our bread and butter. I mean, everybody knows that we do it well. We do it so well, and people are so happy with that we don't normally talk about that. We talk about leading technologies and how we can help from the future of learning perspective. Having said that, we need to reiterate and reinstate that we can definitely do this properly. So what we are talking about here, we're talking about some courses that need to have a minor update. Essentially, the version of the course goes from 1.0 to 1.1, and if an user has completed 1.1, if an user has completed version 1.0, they do not need to do a version 1.1. However, if somebody has not done 1.0, then they should be attached a new version 1.1. You wanted me to demonstrate if the version course replaces the initial course on a colleague's curricula, and also the fact that whatever the newest version is, if a person has completed that, it'll show it as 1.1 in their transcript. However, if someone has completed version 1, it'll show as version 1. So so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just quickly take an example here, go into my learning administrator and show you how easy it is to set up these rules which can essentially automate your versioning here. So I'm going to choose, let's say, a certification. Let's choose certification, and let's say, see how you have different versions of certifications here. So I can choose any certification for that matter. Let's say a customer service essential certification. Now and I can do it for a course, curricular certification, anything. Now once I go in here, as an administrator I am here, so I can see that there is an option for me to go into a new version, create a new version as an administrator. So the version that's current is version 1.0 over here. Now what I do is I go in and say new version. Now this takes me through a very intuitive wizard. What essentially we're trying to do is, if it's a minor version, you can say 1.1, or if it's a major version, say 2, and we tell that the new version is available from the 30th of April. You also have the option of discontinuing the parent version from a certain date. Go into next, and then what we see here is it's just giving you the option of modifying your certification if you want to directly from here. You do not need to do it separately. So if you want to add an assessment or add a new module, you can do all those things here. So once let's say we've made some changes, some changes somewhere. Let's say we've added a new module in, or keep it simple. Say that we've changed an existing module. So we've just added a new course called Anti-Corruption Regulations into this module now, and we'll save it. And this is version 1.1. So this version 1.1 has this anti-corruption regulations inside it, and that's how it is different from version 1.0. All we need to do here is just go and say next, and Saba automatically gives you a lot of options and tells you how you want the system to behave. So it tells you here that for all learners who have acquired this certification, how do you want this to be handled? So you can say, they need to be forced to expire an old version of the certification on a certain date, or reassign the certification on expiration. For existing versions of this certification, so, people who have the existing version, do you want to replace the old version with the new one? Which is exactly what you wanted to do, because you said anyone who has not completed this and there's an existing version of 1.0, move them to 1.1, which means that you have to choose this option here. Replace the old version of the certification with the new version, for anyone who has not completed it, essentially. Or you can say do not replace it, or you also have the option of assigning the new version as an additional requirement. So you mean to say that if do version 1 as well as version 1.1. And once you click done, the system the processes kick in, and on an employee's learning plan, the same stuff becomes visible. So essentially that's how it happens. Well, that's how we essentially solve the problem of moving from version 1.0 to 1.1. And talking about, let's quickly go through the requirement once again. So this is how we can replace the up version course with the initial course. And also on the training plan, I think I've shown some training plans before in one of my screenshots, but if you look at the completed learning part of it, you would see that it definitely takes the version that this person has completed, so the latest version that this person has completed. So if I go into my completed learning portlet, little portlet that's over here in my home page, it would actually show me the latest version that I've done. So yeah, so you see that this is the version 1.0. If it was the latest version 1.1, then it would do like that. I'm actually not processing those rules right now, but I'm just trying to instill that confidence in you that this is how we can do it. This is a simple way of doing it. If you ever require a face-to-face demo, I'm definitely more than happy to schedule that. Okay, I'm just a bit short on time. I'm trying to help you guys to move quickly as well. So that being said, I think there was just one more thing that Seema had mentioned, that was regarding reporting. Now let me just quickly take you, I'm just trying to understand the requirements that you had on reporting. Okay, so let me give you a quick overview of how our reporting is. So reporting in Saba is one of our key strongest points, and it is real time, which means that it's working on data that's getting cooked in the system right now, not data that's 15 days old. And the other thing is that the reporting is interactive. What do I mean by interactive? Interactive essentially means that, let's say I'm just clicking on a sample report. Interactive, by interactive I mean that you can actually interact with these reports. So let's say so this is a dashboard that I can see. Let's say my head of learning sees this every Monday morning, how many people have completed or whatever they were, top key metrics and stuff. I can actually interact with these reports by saying that I want to see how many people are unsuccessful, and in that case I just filter these, and I can see these are the number of people who are unsuccessful, or how many people are successful in this course. I can do this. As you saw, it's very, very easy for me to run reports within Saba.